Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Caleb, and today I have another After Effects tutorial for you guys. And this one was suggested by 954 Sonic on the revealing text tutorial. It says, I have a request, and it's one that is not on YouTube. Could you show me how to make this roulette wheel? And as you saw in the little opening clip, and right here, we have this cool looking roulette wheel that took not very long. It took me probably like 5, maybe 10 minutes to come up with it. And he also showed me an example from like a Super Smash Brothers video that used this this technique, and this I kind of based the design off the one from that video. So I find it right to leave that in the description for you guys if you want to see where this concept came from. I will make sure that that is in the description if you guys are curious. But he said that he figured out a way to do it, but he had 24 solids. He had to mask a lot and parent 23 of the solids to the top, etc. And he said he felt like there was a simpler way to do it, and that's what I'm here to provide today. It didn't take very long at all, like 5 minutes. So hopefully that's how long it'll take in this tutorial. But I do want to, before we start, go ahead and look at our project file so we can see what we're working with before we even start recreating it. So in our main comp, we have a pre-composition where that says roulette, and then you go in. Then we have this yellow shape layer. Then we have, and as you're going to notice, everything's blurry. But the reason for that is because we worked, what I did is I worked small, just so there was enough space for everything, and then I made it bigger, and using the continuous rasterizing feature in After Effects, I was able to make sure everything retained its quality in the final product. So I'll show you that here in a little bit, but so yeah, everything's a little blurry, but that's okay. So we have the yellow shape layer to make up that main concept, and then we go in here and we have our modes, and everything's in a pre-comp, and you go into those pre-comps and you have all the modes in their correct sizes. But as you can see here, everything is small, and that's just so that everything actually fits on the screen properly and nothing's getting cut off from the pre-comps. Then we go in here and we have an alpha cutout just so we don't have to do any masking. So if we make that visible, as you can see, that is the same size as our mode, so that the mode will all come in to that correct size and there's no masking necessary. So yeah, if that's not confusing, then let's just go ahead and get started. So I'm going to close these up real quick and make a new composition. Cool. 10 seconds is fine with me, and we'll continue with a black background because that's easy to look at. And we'll start with a shape layer. So go up to your layers, new, shape layer. Awesome. Let's make a just a big rectangle. That looks fine, and we will make it a nice yellow color. Let's go, like kind of nothing too bright. That looks fine to me, because I don't want you guys' eyes to bleed from this tutorial. And we'll center that up using a line and centering the anchor point using motion. And you guys may not have motion, but I just use that to center anchor points a lot in these tutorials. So a line that you do have that. If you don't have a line, you can go to the window and hit a line. Cool. And then let's make another shape layer. We'll duplicate this one just because it's easy and it's already in the correct proportion. And let's do some color coding here. So our yellow square or yellow rectangle, that's going to go with the yellow tag. And here we duplicated our shape layer. So let's just grab this little handle right here and squeeze this guy in to make him a little bit smaller. And then we will move him over here. And let's make him another color. We'll make him blue to match up with that easy difficulty. And let's take a look at where we are. So let's just make sure that there's no yellow showing on this right side. So we're going to zoom in. I'm going to grab my hand tool and I'm going to press V to switch back to the normal cursor. And we'll go over here and move it right over to the right just a little bit, just to make sure there's no yellow showing. See, as you can see right there, there's a little bit of yellow showing on that right side, so just one more tap of the right arrow key and it covers it up completely. Looks awesome. And now we have that centered up, so let's just duplicate that and make it another color for the next difficulty. And I will also center my anchor point using motion. And let's make the next one green. That looks good to me. And then color coding, we will do a green tag just to make sure, that's the correct layer. And then we'll make the next one red. Let's change our fill. And there we go, super easy. Now let's go back to our first shape layer that we made, so that blue one, and let's pull out our text tool up here in the toolbar, or you can do Control-T, bring that up. Great. Let's name this guy Easy, and then we will do that. Cool, using a line to center the anchor point, make sure that's centered, and then we will drag it over here, and it's going to center up. It's really good to center your anchor points because if we didn't do that, then it would be kind of hard to find the center of our shape. We could use some position and do a little bit of math to figure out exactly where it is. But if you center up that anchor point using motion or any other script, whenever you're dragging your text layer, So if it's all the way over here and it's like I want it to be in the middle of that square, if the anchor point is actually truly in the middle of that shape layer, then your text is going to be like, okay, I will align with that, with the anchor point of that shape, and now it's directly in the middle, which is awesome. So let's duplicate that shape layer and we'll move them up here, and then we will shut off that other shape layer below it, and then we will name this one medium, just like from the example. And that should already be in the center, but you know, just to make sure, I'm going to drag it back in. There we go, looks great. And now let's duplicate that shape layer or that text layer one more time and shut off the ones below it. Then make the red one visible, and we will name this next shape layer, we'll name him hard for the hard difficulty. And then again, one more time, should be in the center, but just to make sure, let's drag them out and drag them back in. Awesome. All right, and now let's do some more color coding. So our hard shape is already, or our hard text layer is already the right color in our timeline, but the medium and easy ones are not. So the medium is with the green shape layer, so let's just go ahead and make that green. And then the easy is with the blue shape layer, so you know, let's make that one blue. So now everything in the timeline looks nice and neat, and awesome. That's about it. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to parent our text layers to the correlating shape layers. So blue goes with blue, green goes with green, red goes with red. You're going to grab your pick whip and you're going to move that down to the shape layer below the text. And then again on the medium to the green. Awesome. Hard, red to the red. Looks good. So now whenever we move our shape layer, the text layer will move with it. It's, you know, pretty self-explanatory. Looks awesome. And now we're going to shut off the top shape layer and text layer and grab our green. And then we're going to move it right below that text and the easy shape and text. And whenever you're moving a shape or really anything in After Effects and you want it to move, you don't want it to move left or right, or you don't want it to move right or up and down whenever you're trying to move it a certain direction. So if I were to say we're up here and I want it to just go directly down, if I do not hold shift while doing that, it's going to go off in any direction it wants to. So whenever you're moving something like this and you want it to be precise, hold down your shape layer. So I'm going to hold down my left click, and then I'm going to hold down shift. And now if I move down, it's going to move along that axis so that it doesn't go anywhere else. Just a little tip, if you're trying to move things precisely, hold down shift and you'll move along whatever axis you want. And the same thing goes for left and right. So if I want to hold this down and go to the left, I hold down shift, it's going to go to the left or to the right. Or if I want to go up and down, looks great. Awesome. So now we're going to do some lining up just to make sure all the pixels are where they should be. We're not leaving any open spaces. So we're moving this down. And as you can see with the black background, we're seeing some black there. So let's just cover that up. Just move it up with the arrow keys just very slightly. And that looks good. We're not seeing any other colors than we should. Perfectly lined up. Awesome. We might want to just move it up one more time just to be safe. That looks great. And now we're going to do the exact same thing for the top shape layer and the text layer. So let's move this red one down and just zoom in. Press H to pull up the hand tool, V to pull up the select, and move that down until we see some black. Oh, there we go. So let's just cover that up. And we'll go one past where we think it should be. So there we go. And now they're all lined up. But as you can see, the bottom of the hard shape layer it's kind of being cut off. So we just want to move everything up because we're going to be doing some pre-composing. So if anything is off the screen when we pre-compose, it will get cut off in the final product. So not everything will be shown. And that's why later we're going to be working smaller than we should, just to make sure everything is where it should be and nothing's getting cut. So I'm just going to go ahead and name some shape layers. We're just going to make this the main thing, and all the other ones are fine. I don't think I need to name those, but we're going to pre-compose the rest of our shape layers and text layers, and you can do that by highlighting everything. So I'm going to press the first one and then hold down shift and click, and that's going to highlight everything there. And you can do Control-Shift-C for the shortcut to pre-compose, or you can right click on everything you have highlighted and then press pre-compose. That looks great. And I'm going to name that modes and move all the attributes into a new composition, just so that everything is being moved into a new layer and nothing's being left behind. And you know, just press that. Looks good. Awesome. Do that. And pre-composing is basically cleaning up your timeline and moving all of your layers into a new layer. So if you double click on that, we go in, all of our layers are there, nothing's being deleted or lost, it's just all in a new layer. And I'm gonna make this blue just so it's easy to point out. And great. So what do we do now? We're gonna go in here And actually, let's just go ahead and duplicate this over a couple times. And this is where we're going to start working small, and then we're going to get big. So just make sure everything is where it should be. I'm just going to duplicate this over a few times just to make sure we have enough. So when we go here, when we're doing this whole movement, there's enough of the roulette to make it seem kind of unique. And just give that style off of a roulette wheel. So we're going to duplicate it over a few times, and then we're just going to make everything small. And we're going to go down, I think in that one I worked in like 12%, so I'm going to move everything down 12%, and that looks good. So everything's now down to 12%, and I'm just going to make one of these visible, just so I can get an idea. And we're going to move this up, right there, and we're going to move it back to where it should be. So right about there, that looks good. And I recommend working in full resolution for this, just to make sure everything, the pixels, you can easily see them. So as you can see right there, there's a little bit of yellow showing, so we're gonna move that up. That looks great. And now we can make another one of these visible, and we are going to move that one up. And we're just gonna do the same thing we did last time, where we were covering up the pixels that shouldn't be there. So we move this up. That looks great, so no more black. Right there you see a little bit showing, you're gonna move that up, and we'll just go with that rule where we move up one more than we think we should, just to make sure that there's no blank space and everything's touching. Then we'll do it one more time, and we're going to move it down right there. And then again, boom. So do a lot of duplication, just so you're not making a bunch of new layers. You're going to be duplicating layers, and it's going to really speed up that process to make sure that even though you're working with a lot of layers, as long as you're duplicating, it really doesn't make a difference in time-wise. You're not making a bunch of new layers, you're working with the ones you already started with. That's why I really like making a main concept and then duplicating that main concept over in a situation like this. So we basically just making the workload of working with a bunch of layers really easy. And that's why pre-compositions are so essential in After Effects. You can basically solve any problem you have most of the time with pre-comps. It's pretty insane. So now, as you can see, just like the example I showed you before in our project file, everything is smaller than it needs to be. And we're going to be scaling this back up. So one big thing you want to do is turn on rasterizing. And that right here, this little gear, that's rasterizing. That's going to make sure when you scale something back up that it does not lose its quality. But we're going to want motion blur on our modes. So go into the pre-comp and highlight everything, turn on motion blur, and then hit that guy right there so that, whenever we're doing the movement, as you can see here, this has motion blur on it from After Effects, but this is rasterized. And whenever you're rasterizing something, it actually gets rid of your motion blur, so you can't turn it on. So in order to bypass that, just make sure your original layers all have motion blur on them, and it won't be a problem. So one more thing that we need to do, instead of doing masking, like the guy that suggested the tutorial said that he had to do masking, to get rid of that completely, we're going to make an alpha matte. So duplicate the, actually, don't duplicate anything. Go into your modes, and then just grab one shape layer. So I'm going to grab the first one we made, which is the blue one. And then go back to that other composition, and then put that right there, and it might be worth it just to make it another color to make sure that it's just a unique color, make that pink or something, I don't know. And then just scale this down to the percentage that everything else is. So I'm actually just going to pre-compose this to make sure I get the scale right. So I'm pre-comping this shape layer to make sure that when I scale it down, it's the exact same size as the other pre-comps. So I'm just going to name this, I'll just name this alpha cutout. And then I will make it yellow too, just to make sure I know what it's doing. Cool. Now I'm going to scale this down to 12%, just like everything else is. And then that will be, let me put that on top real quick. Cool, so that's right there. And I'm going to, again, one more time, just line it up with the other layers. And that looks good right there. No more blue. So no more blue. Awesome. And now we are going to, again, do some more pre-comping. All of our modes that we have duplicated, we are going to hold down Shift, click them, Control-Shift-C to pre-compose, and I'll name this modes again. And then we're going to put the modes below the alpha cutout, and then press toggle switches in modes, pull up on your track mats, and then alpha mat that to the cutout. So the cutout is basically, when you're track matting and alpha matting specifically, it's saying wherever So our pre-composition that contains all of our modes, wherever this alpha cutout is, that is only where the modes are going to show up. So as you can see right there, that pink, it's invisible, so it's turned off. And then when we move our modes, it's going to only show up where that alpha cutout is. So that's basically what alpha matting is. It's saying wherever one thing is, that's where this other thing is going to show up only. And then alpha inverting is the exact opposite. So awesome. We have that done, and that's basically it. So now we just need to scale this back up and make sure everything's rasterized. So rasterize. Awesome. Make sure you click those gears. If you ever lose quality in a project, it's because most of the time it's going to be because you have the rasterizing off. And then we're going to pre-compose one more time, and then we're going to name this roulette, just like from the example. And we're going to scale that back up. Again, turn on rasterizing, and boom. We'll move that guy right there to the center of the screen, and let's just move our anchor point using, what's this tool, the pan behind? Yeah. We'll move him up, and we'll just put it's right about there in the center of our roulette wheel, and then we'll move him right there, and let's just say that's the center. Oop, I lost him. So right about there. Looks fine to me. And as you can see, let's just go back in, and we have everything nice and small in this pre-composition. And the reason why we made everything small is so that all of these modes that we have duplicated will fit onto the screen and won't get cut off. And you would, whenever you'd make something like this and you would work with smaller shape layers and then scale them back up, you would always worry about losing quality. But with that rasterizing feature, you know, you're not really even having to worry about that, because when you scale everything back up, After Effects immediately recognizes what's supposed to be there, and it's rasterized so that it doesn't lose quality. So let's just go ahead and get that nice little spinny effect going. So on the modes, we are going to take the position, and we'll go in about 3 seconds, and we will just move that down, or move that up, so that all the modes go through. And let me just zoom in here, take a look, and we'll have it land on the last one. So we'll have it land on that hard difficulty. That looks good to me. No more yellow. Awesome. And then using motion, I'll just give it a nice ease so that it looks cool. There we go. So now when we look at that in our small pre-comp, as you can see, all the modes are zooming through. And let's just turn on motion blur in here. Motion blur's on there. And then in this final one, motion blur has to be on too, so that in the final product, the motion blur is there. And again, if you're having trouble with motion blur, because motion blur gets a little weird with rasterizing because it turns it off, just make sure that your original modes all have motion blur ticked on, and in those pre-comps, motion blur is enabled and you won't have a problem. So go back to that the one we just made here, and then look at that. We have our cool looking roulette wheel, and let me just RAM preview that real quick. And then I can send you guys on your way, because that's pretty much it. You don't really have anything else going on besides that. It's super simple, very easy. There's a few steps, but if you just do it in the correct order and you don't, overlook anything and you keep organized, most of the time you should get it right. So let's take a look at that. If you want to go for me, there you go. So there you go. There's your little roulette wheel. And there's no masking involved. You have quite a few shape layers, but with the pre-comps and the duplications, it really isn't a big deal. I was trying to think of a way that you could do it without duplicating, but I felt like that was the simplest answer, and it just made the most sense to me. So yeah, and let's go over the project file one more time just to make sure everything makes sense. So we have a main composition with a pre-comp, and that says roulette. You go into there, we have our main shape layer, and all this is tiny, but scaled back up again with rasterizing. So turn that on and off, there we go, look at that. Then we have our alpha cutout, which is all of our modes are being alpha matted to that cutout so that they're only being shown there, and there's no masking involved. We go into our modes, we have 5 different pre-comps that have all of these little shapes in the text layers, and then we go into the modes and we have them all in their correct sizes, which was the first thing we did. So we made this template and then we just duplicated it over and made them tiny so they all fit on the screen, and that's pretty much it. And then the final product, we have motion blur on and the cool looking roulette wheel. So that's about it. I hope you guys did enjoy. Pretty simple stuff. Hope it simplified it for you, 954 Sonic, and thank you for the request. If you guys have any other requests, then feel free to message me in the comments, on Twitter, wherever, you know. But that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next one.